Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. I'm Audley Stevenson, and thank you for tuning in to the most audacious podcast on the internet. This is the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you taking a moment out of your day to join us as we continue our ongoing goal of helping you live your best audacious life ever. As always, I encourage you to connect with us through our social media channels. We're on Twitter and Instagram under the handle The Audacious Pod, and then you can also find us on Facebook under the handle The Audacious Living Podcast. So if you type that into your search engine, you'll find us. And if you happen to be watching this edition of the podcast on our YouTube channel, you can easily subscribe by tapping on the bell down below, and you'll stay connected. So as always, like, follow, subscribe, and share, and let's keep this audacious conversation going. It's really that easy, and so let's keep it moving. The Audacious Living Podcast, those regular listeners of this podcast will know that there are several core foundational principles that this podcast is based on, and one of them is the concept of sharing. The information that's discussed here with our guests on this podcast isn't meant to be held on to. In fact, it's the exact opposite. We want to share the knowledge, share the insights, share the lessons learned through the robust conversations that take place here for the benefit of helping others. And it's for that reason why today's guest is so fitting. Melody Saberon Ybarra is a two-time cancer survivor, a good friend, and I'm so elated to have her join me here on the podcast to share her uplifting story of determination and perseverance. Listen, we all know how deadly cancer can be and what that battle is like. I'm sure many of you have had some experience, either firsthand through a family member, friend, or whomever, someone in your circle. When you look at Melody's story, she was diagnosed first with cancer in the first battle in her late teens. And although it was a bit of a shock for her at the time, as you'll hear from her, she really didn't take it that seriously right away. And it took her some time to fully understand the severity of what she was what was in front of her, and that she needed to, fight and push her way through it to beat cancer. Or at least that's what she thought. It returned a few years later, and this time was far more aggressive and more evasive. And that's when Melody really had to lock in and get through it for that second battle. And, the thing that I love, most about, Melody's story, certainly, the fight, the adversity, and not giving up. But since having those experiences, Melody is now using that, and she's sharing with others to motivate. She's not holding on to them. She's sharing her stories and letting people know that they can too overcome any kind of challenge as long as they continue to fight. And I think it's particularly helpful for those in similar circumstances. It's not an easy road, and Melody understands this all too well. It really is a wonderful and heartwarming story that I'm certain that you'll simply love. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Melody. Enjoy. Melody, it is great to have you here with me on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's awesome to chat with you again. For our listeners, they don't know this, but this is actually our second attempt. We sat down one time before. Technical gremlins came in and did their worst, and we're back at it again. But this gives us an opportunity to connect in person. So thank you for being here once again.
Always a pleasure.
Cool. On this podcast, we spend a lot of time talking about different ways that, we can live sort of this bold, audacious life. And one thing that rings true for me is the power of sharing our stories, our journeys, going through our sharing our points of adversity that we've overcome. because of the impact that it can have on other people. And so it's only fitting when I think about your story and your battle with cancer and all that you've had to do to get through that. I think it's really fitting. So again, I appreciate you for sharing. And let's kind of let's start with maybe at the beginning of your journey with cancer. Maybe let's start there, because it's been a little while ago that you first were diagnosed, right? Like 20
Yes.
years ago, roughly, right? Wow.
Yes, a little over 20 years ago with the first battle.
Right. And so for those, if you can describe the type of cancer that you dealt with at that time.
Okay, so the first cancer I was diagnosed with is epithelioid sarcoma,
Okay.
and that one was actually discovered by accident. So, um, towards the end of my high school career or whatever, I used to love to run a lot, and
Mhm.
then in college I ran a lot. But that summer, between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, I noticed a pain, and it looked like a bruise on my thigh, and you know, it it kept growing over time, and then it started to feel sore. So I finally, I hate going to the doctors, but I finally went into the doctor's office and
Mhm.
got it checked out. Turns out it was a sarcoma, and it took me a while to get educated on it, but
Okay.
they told me, "Oh, well, you're at the beginning stages of cancer." And I'm thinking, "Are you joking? Because I'm 19."
Right.
I'm like, but I grew up in a community where, during the 80s or 90s or whatever you want to call it, there was a cancer cluster in Central California in that area. We don't know if it was due to agriculture and all the chemicals they were spraying in
Right.
the air or
Right.
something in the water. We have no idea. So that was my first battle. And then I went into, I did all the things I needed to do, the chemo, the radiation. And then I went back in because I started feeling sick again about, I guess, my third year of college. I started to feel sick again, and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I got the flu or something. I'm just
Right.
going to go in
Sure.
feeling sick. Well, it turns out, after more digging and more tests and all the stuff they had to do back in the mid 90s, we found out that I have another sarcoid, but this was a sarcoid that, was actually there with the first cancer, and they just didn't discover it then. I ended up with the liver sarcoma, which is one of those where it's like at the time there was only a 15% survival rate for anybody who had it, let
Right.
alone somebody who was in their early 20s, because that
Right.
happened a couple years after I was diagnosed with the first one. Well, that battle was more invasive and more challenging, and that's when all the depression and just my perspective on life had just changed
Right.
completely.
Right. I want to go back to your first bout with it. So first off, for those that have never heard of sarcoma, that's a new term for them. Can you explain what that is, so we have an understanding of that?
Okay, so a sarcoma or sarcoid,
Mhm.
however, it's used, um, is a soft tissue. It's a soft tissue cancer. It's
Okay.
a lump that they find in the tissue. Like for mine, it was in the tissue surrounding a portion of my liver.
Okay.
And in when the epithelial one in my upper left thigh, it was in between some tissue and some muscle in my leg, which is why I felt that bruising pain.
Right.
So.
Right. And so outside of that pain, there was no other signs or anything that you had at that time?
With the epithelioid sarcoma, no, it looked like, like when you get a bruise and you hit your leg,
Right.
it just is all purple and stuff. And I was running, and when you're a runner, you'll get the occasional pains, like, okay,
Sure.
well, maybe I pulled a muscle or something
Yeah.
like that. So you ignore it. You're like, okay, I'll just put a little bit of biofreeze or whatever.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
then the pain just wouldn't go away, and then the area that looked bruised started getting hard, and it was painful to the touch. So finally I gave in and went into the university health center, and they told me that I needed to go see my regular physician, and that's when the first journey began.
Right. And you really didn't take it seriously, did you? I mean, although they said, because again, you're so young, and you're a teenager, and it doesn't sound real, did it? Did it to you?
It didn't. I was like, "You're joking." And the first time around, I think it took me a while to even break it to my parents, because they were just like, no, that can't be real. That can't be right. But we'll just take it out and we'll just
Right,
take care of it and it'll be gone.
right,
No, they took it out, got it biopsied. We got opinion. I think after the first one, I asked for a second opinion. And after the second opinion, I had to make a quick decision. And because I was considered an adult at 19,
right.
I went against what my parents felt at the time because they were in disbelief. And I opted for the treatment to see what would happen. I mean, what do I got to lose, right?
Right, 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 right. And so, what were your parents thinking? What were they? What option did they want you to take?
Well, they wanted me to do like the natural. See, I'm mixed, so being like Asian Islander and Native American and all these mixtures, I'm truly an
Yes,
American,
right,
melting pot, whatever. But they wanted me to do all these home remedies, all these things that they
right,
believe, would work culturally, and I'm okay with it. And I did do some of it to appease them, but I also believe in my faith and of course, science. And at the time, I was working with an oncologist in
hmm,
Bakersfield that, was associated with UCLA Medical Center. So he made
okay,
me feel confident in my decision. And
right.
I'm glad I went that route because I'm still here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Give me an idea of sort of your sort of where you were at and again in that first stage, the first bout rather. Where are you at sort of mentally as you're kind of going through this? Because you go from not taking it seriously to all of a sudden having to take it seriously to going through a treatment that lasted a couple years roughly.
Yeah, it lasted about, oh my gosh, lasted from 96 to 2003.
Okay, wow,
So it
yeah, a
was,
few years,
yeah, it
yeah,
was off and on. So that first experience, it felt so unreal. And then it wasn't until I had to ride the bus to UCLA Medical Center and hear the doctors over there explain to me what exactly a sarcoma
hmm,
is, and then tell me that, usually it stems from something else, but we couldn't, from tests and everything there, we couldn't locate it. But it's the mid 90s. The technology wasn't as good as it is now.
right,
And
right,
so they told me if I choose to do the chemo and the radiation,
hmm,
there's a good chance that my lifespan from that point it would go from like 6 months to, maybe 5 or 6 years extra.
okay, okay,
So I'm thinking, okay, I mean, what am I going to do? I'm like,
right,
let's see what happens.
right,
What am I, I can live 6 months and quit school and just do whatever, or
right.
aim for the 5 years and go ahead and, at least do one of my goals and graduate from college. And
Sure.
so I did it, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, no, no, it's I can see where it's such a tough decision to have to make, right? All of a sudden sit down and think, okay, so like think like we don't necessarily think of our lives in these increments, right? Well, 6 months or 5 years, and you have to make that kind of decision again, especially at a young age. That's not an easy thing to do.
It isn't. And when I asked, and this is the part of me where I'm like, man, I was young and dumb. Because they're like, okay, we're going to give you, 2 to 3 weeks before we'll begin treatment. Oh, my poor best friend. I was telling her, you know what? I got, 2, 3 weeks. Let's do this. And we went to, the nearby Six Flags. I did bungee jumping. Was like, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go my way. Let's do this.
Yeah, do it on your terms, right?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
So,
gosh, that's
yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. So 2003 rolls around, you get to the end of it. That must have been such a tremendous sense of relief, wasn't it, Melody?
Oh my gosh. Yes. I was like, are you sure? Because you told me that, this was all just a small possibility. And they also told me I wasn't going to be able to have children. And, by 2003, I had my first kid.
Amazing.
So my
Amazing.
miracle child.
That's it. That's amazing. And so
So
leading up until 2003, were you seeing the light at the end of the tunnel at that point, or did it just suddenly kind of just happen?
it just it just happened.
Wow.
It's like I became a robot because
Yeah.
there was really no one in my age group that I could talk to because, whenever I jump into you'd go to the cancer center,
Hmm.
there, I mean, I don't know how to say nicely. There was always just like the older people.
Understood.
And
Understood.
it's like, I don't want to be lectured or be told, you should do this, this is, I've lived my life and blah, blah. I'm like, I'm already depressed. You're going to make me more depressed.
So then what got you through it then? Those depressive moments or states. What was the key?
You know, uh, a lot of it I was reading, a lot of it I was talking to my pastor at the church. A lot of it was, just faith and in the discipline I got from, my dad and from playing sports in high school. It's just, you got to keep going no matter what.
Hmm.
So, because you never know what will happen. So
Right.
those are the voices that were in my head. Yeah, I'm crazy.
Not at all. I promise you. I remember once you talked about the defeated mindset, right? Like if you are
Yes,
defeated, if
if
you
you
act it, go ahead. You say it because it
exactly.
sounds better coming from you.
So, I remember one of my coaches at the time, and, they would always say, if you feel defeated, you are defeated. So you have to put yourself in that mindset like, you got this, you can beat this, or you can beat them, or whatever it is. But yes, so it is all in how you think and how you feel. And yes, there was a lot of mental health battles, a lot of obviously a lot of physical and emotional battles. But that thought in my head, it was just, you got to keep moving forward. I got this. I can do this.
That's it.
We don't know what's going to happen next. Tomorrow they could have a cure. We don't know.
Right. Right. So you got to keep pushing ahead, and that's exactly what you did, which is amazing. It's so amazing. I could
Exactly.
see, and you had a child, and life is going along nicely and smoothly. And then round two. What year did that take place?
Oh gosh, that happened 2 years after my first remission note. So I, gosh, let's see, 96, 97. That was probably around 90. That was like 97, 98. So, and that one was harsh because, the liver is the main organ,
Yes.
but,
Yes.
and even though it can rejuvenate itself, because there's a sarcoid, there's a cancer right there that was like the size of you're, I don't know, this is going to age me. Remember Big League chewing gum?
Yes, I do.
So if you took that whole package, put it in your mouth and wadded it up and spit it out, that was the size.
That's a
That's
big.
how they yeah, that's how they described it to me. That was a big size. That was about the size of the tumor that was sitting in the tissue in my liver on that big part. Because you know how your liver kind of looks like a steak, I guess.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that bigger part of the steak was where that big league chewing gum size thing was.
Not there. Got you. Got you. And so when it came back the second time around, how did it show up at that time? The first time you had that bruise on your leg. What did it look like the second time around?
The second time around, it didn't look like anything. I was just feeling sick all the time. I got tired and I dropped weight like crazy. And I thought, oh my gosh. At first I was like, hey, I'm losing weight. Hey, that's good.
Right.
But
Right.
then it just happened so fast and it just wasn't healthy. And if you know your body, something's not right.
Right. Right.
So I went in to get checked
Hmm.
and they said, well, maybe you need to go see your oncologist again. So I did and did the whole, all the tests again where they do the biopsy and they do the MRIs, the PET, all those different types of scans that were needed.
Yep.
And within 3 months of taking all those tests, they call me and they said, you need to come in, we need to talk to you. And I'm thinking, okay, gosh, this doesn't sound good.
Right.
So I sat there again, pretty much in the same room I was in the same building. And
Deja
this
vu.
time they
Deja
tell
vu.
me, right. And they're like, well, you understand the term remission doesn't mean it's completely gone. It just means that it's not here right now. And I'm thinking, why do we use that word then? Why did you say it was gone? Yeah. I was like, here I am. I'm 22 now, and you're telling me, I'm gonna die again.
Right. 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 And that's tough. That's tough to listen to. right? Especially when
Right.
you heard it already, and it's like, wow, we're back to this again. That's deflating, isn't
Right.
it?
It is. And I'm thinking, okay, I have the best team behind me, and it's still it came back.
Hmm. And so,
So
so the second time you said it was a tougher battle.
it was a tougher battle. The meds, they were constantly making me sick. So the first time around I didn't have to take oral meds on top of the chemo and radiation. There wasn't too much that needed to be done. It was in my leg. So,
Yeah,
you
right,
take it out, you get the maintenance treatment or whatever, and then you're good to go. You're in
right,
remission, celebrate, yay, cancer free.
right.
Well, the liver, you have to take all kinds of these chemo pills, like oral stuff, and then you have to go in, and instead of being in chemotherapy for just a couple of hours a day, I was there every day for 2 weeks, and it
Right.
was all day. So I would feel sick. I was refusing to eat. I had definitely had nobody to talk to. It was just, I felt defeated, and I was trying to fight that. And I was already at the point where I was telling my family, just let me go. I'm tired. I can't do this. But yeah, I had a good foundation. I had a very good foundation, and my parents were like, "No, you can do this." And my dad would, I wasn't supposed to be eating whatever ice cream. They're trying to put all these like Ensure Boost type drinks on you so that you
Right.
can. I refused to eat. My dad was sneaking in Ben and Jerry's. I was like, that I would eat for whatever reason. Probably because whatever goes down eventually comes back up, and I like that taste.
So you had it
And you can laugh,
twice.
right? So it's I can laugh about it now. It's really gross, but you know, it was one of those where at that point he just wanted me to have something in my stomach,
Of
because
course.
the meds have to absorb in something, and I was very stubborn. I was already giving up, and my parents, my brothers, my friends, they refused to give up on me. And
Mhm.
so but at the same time too, I didn't like that whole thing where they would come visit me and look at me as if I was dying, because that is a big deal too.
Mm,
Like, you're telling me you believe in me and I can do this, but you're looking at me like you want to say goodbye. I don't want to
mm,
take pictures with you.
right.
Luckily, social media didn't exist then yet, because I was
Right.
like, are you taking pictures with me because you're going to put this up on a memorial or something?
Right. Right. No, I can see where your mind goes all sorts of places, right? It's only natural. And
Right.
with what you're going through, it's not an easy thing to just sort of ignore, right? It's real.
Exactly. And I didn't feel like it was my job to console you as my family or friend, because you're looking at me like you're saying goodbye. And I'm just like, dude, I'm going to see you later.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's not goodbye, it's later for sure. For sure. You credit your family for helping you get through that second one. They didn't let you give up. How significant was that to your overall, when you think of that overall journey, and how much did that make a difference for you?
It made a huge difference, because the first time around they were in denial. And then the second time, I think they had more of a push to believe me and what was happening. I even brought my parents with me to a couple of appointments. So, maybe I wasn't explaining it correctly, but when they spoke with the doctor and the nurses, and, you know, were explained to the best of their ability, the cancer center, because it was common, but it wasn't as common. So
Right, right, right.
it helped a lot. And, you know, talking about that look of death or sadness, I saw that in my parents' face, and I'm like, oh gosh, I can't do
Right.
this.
No, I get it. No, I get it. I get it. So that second bout, how long was that battle for now? How long did that go on for?
That one went on for probably a year and a half before
Okay.
I had my final remission date. And that was the last one. Thank goodness that was the last one I've had to battle.
And that's
So
and that's how long ago now? This is 20, about 20 years or so.
it's about 20 years. It was 2003.
Oh man, so you're right there, close there, almost there.
Yes,
It's amazing.
almost there. Yes.
when you reflect back on that journey, what sort of things come out to stand out in your mind about that, those battles that you had to deal with? Is there anything particular, or is there a bunch of things, or?
There's all kinds of things. So, a lot of people take life for granted where, you know, truly, I know little things mean a lot. Everybody is all about, I don't know, face value. Like they want to put out this thing about themselves, like, oh, well, you know what, I have this, I've accomplished this, I've been here, I own this. Where, I'm at that place, like, you know what? The bills are paid. I got a roof over my head. I got a family that loves me. I'm rich.
Yeah, yeah.
It's little things. Just they mean a lot more than anything material.
That's well said. And it's funny because we oftentimes take things for granted that, we don't have to, the things that you don't have to work hard for that just come to us naturally. They sometimes are taken for granted. Like we're entitled to get these things, and we're really not. There's nothing guaranteed.
Exactly.
Nothing's guaranteed. Absolutely. The power of sharing. So one thing that I so love about you and what you continue to do is you share your journey. You use that as a way of being a spark to other people, to being that light for other people. When did that start for you? When did you start? Because I assume for a while maybe that's not what you were doing right away, or so. When did that happen for you?
So, somebody who worked at the cancer center was telling me about a support group for newly diagnosed patients, or patients that were just beginning their survival journey.
Yeah.
And she goes, I know you've always talked about and joked around here whenever you visited the office, how you didn't have anybody to talk to. And the people that you could talk to were way older and were depressing you. And I would just laugh. I was like, yeah, so well, they started a local foundation where they have a survivor group that met before the pandemic. They would meet once a month.
Hmm.
And I I guess by accident became a voice of a survivor, because I told them how, in my experience, what I didn't like being a young adult was I had no one to talk to about, what I was going through. Anybody who would understand, the kind of hurt that I'm feeling, or the kind of pain that I, was battling inside and in my head, and,
Right.
thinking, I don't know, there's just that mentality. And everyone's like, oh, I'm going to be there for you, you can talk to me anytime. And I get it. Yes, I appreciate you and I love you for that, but you don't understand what's going through my head. You haven't been
Right.
through what I've been through. And that was really harsh for me, going through the two battles that I did. So
Yeah.
when I was approached to be in this group once a month, I started talking more, and then I was being asked more questions. And now I'm, a member of this foundation, this group that, we have annual events now. And, we're raising money for local patients. And when we can meet again, we will meet again. And I will again, be open to talking to anybody who needs somebody to talk to, who can understand. Because as a young adult, I can relate to some of these younger kids, because 19, you're still kind of a kid, right? At heart,
Right.
because you
Right.
life is just beginning.
That's right.
And then, with adults, it's, I've dealt with a cancer that is still rare in on these times, but the battle is still the same for you, your liver or your pancreas or whatever.
Right, right. And again, I think that goes back to the power of sharing our journeys, our messages, and the strength that you can offer to people. Because I'm sure that many people that you've shared with has a great appreciation for you being there for them.
I hope so. They don't. I've only been told a couple times, thank you for understanding and not making me feel alone, because I don't feel alone in my battle. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you're not alone. You're never alone.
That's I think that's so key, so important. So if there was something that you wanted listeners to know about, based on your experience, or something that you wanted to leave them with, what would it be, Melody?
I'm sorry, you
If
cut
there's
out a
any,
little bit.
no, as I said, if there's anything that you wanted to share with listeners that you want them to know about the journey that you had to go through, or what, you could, if there was a sort of a final thought you'd leave them with, what would that be?
You know, it would be, it doesn't matter what your obstacle is. It could be cancer, it could be, rheumatoid arthritis, it could be fibromyalgia, it could be whatever. It could be battling depression. You you choose. Everything is basically how you feel, how you think, what you believe, and you really have to believe in yourself to keep moving forward. That's something that you can find within yourself. You have it within you. You just have to keep pushing. I mean, there's always something, there's always a reason to still fight.
Yeah.
Don't give up. I mean, there's no reason to give up.
I agree, and it's so important to find that thing to push for, that thing to live for, if you will. And I know that sounds, the idea of living for this, but I mean, it does. There is some power in that, right? It helps us. It pushes us forward.
There's power in just the way you think about life, the way you feel about yourself, the way you can push yourself, what inspires you.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's so amazing, Melody. I think it's awesome, and like I said, it was so great to be able to sort of talk about your journey and your story, and again, I absolutely love the way that you continually share. The sharing thing, there's so much power in that. It's really easy to go through something and feel like you're the only person in the world, and that no one has any idea, they can't understand, they don't feel it, they don't know. And to be able to then know that someone knows not only what you felt like, they've gone through it too, and that's where their
Hmm.
true power lies, man. It's amazing.
Exactly. You're never alone. You're never alone. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I know that's what causes a lot of depression
Yep.
within cancer patients is you feel abandoned, you feel alone,
Yep.
and you're not there. You're not alone. You just have to know when to reach out and know who to
Yep.
talk to.
Yeah, and with mental health being more on the forefront now than ever, certainly when when you were first diagnosed, it's the conversation about mental health and about depression, they're more prevalent, they're more openly talked about, whereas before that wasn't the case. So that's another, I think, a really significant point, because we're in a different time now, right?
Exactly. I mean, I wish someone told me like, okay, yeah, your depression's going to go really bad, even after you survive this. I
Right.
wish I knew,
Right.
because I thought it was all just me. That's not
Yeah.
healthy either.
Yeah. It's really easy to fall into this thing going, it's all me, it's all me, it's all me, when really it's a normal kind of part of the journey, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, man. Melody, this is awesome. I am so happy we sat down and chatted. And again, thank you for sharing the way you, not only just now, but the way you continue to do. And I ask that you don't stop, keep going. You absolutely are touching people, whether you know it or not. You absolutely are touching people. You're inspiring them. You're motivating them to keep pushing through their own challenges. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
That's amazing. Again, and for our listeners, now there's a local the organization that you support locally. What's the name of that? Can we give that a plug so that's out there and people
Oh,
want to look up? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's called the Kern County Cancer Foundation. We're actually getting ready to do an event called Camp Out Against Cancer. It's coming back even just after this pandemic, because it's outdoors.
There
So
we
we're
go.
able
Makes
to do
sense.
it. So I think you saw it on my Facebook page once upon a time, but if
Yeah.
there's a link there, if anybody wants to donate, all that money stays within the community and it helps cancer patients that need help. So, and it helps
Amazing.
them with their bills, with maybe their rent,
Yep.
whatever. But
Amazing. We will make a point that we make that link accessible and share, and that way people can connect with that. Thank you. Congratulations on the great job. And again, Melody, keep it going, man. I appreciate you.
thank you.
back we are here on the podcast, and I got to send a real big shout out to Melody. It was so awesome to have you. I can't express enough words to express my appreciation for you being here on the Audacious Living podcast and sharing in the manner that you did. Your experiences were both uplifting and inspiring, and I know personally I walked away with so much, and I really appreciate you for sharing. Speak of walking with so much, Melody left us with so much to think about. But if there's just one thing that I take from our conversation, it would be this. It's very easy for feelings of isolation to set in during periods of great adversity and struggle. It's hard to imagine that anyone could possibly understand what we're going through in that moment or have any idea what we possibly could be feeling. But what if that person existed? What if that person knew exactly what you were going through because they were in the same boat and found a way to overcome? When we share our stories of overcoming challenges and obstacles, they have the incredible power to change our perspective while providing hope and inspiration to others who may be going through their own set of personal challenges or difficulties. Your story could be exactly the strength and motivation that someone else needs to get themselves to the other side. Hey, listen, if you haven't registered for email notifications of the podcast, please know that you could do so by heading over to bestaudaciouslife.com. All you've got to do is enter in your email address, and you'll be immediately alerted every time there's new content that comes out. So I'd encourage you to head on over there and do so as a great way of staying connected. We've come to the end of another episode, and I say thank you and shout out to my tremendous listeners, all those lovers of audaciousness. I appreciate you being here, and thank you. It's that ongoing support that you give to us that allows us to keep going. So please keep it moving, and we will do our part. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audacious Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.